Hi, I'm Alicia Cahill, and we're here inside the classroom at the Kitchen Chick. And I have the great pleasure of ushering in the holidays and sharing with you a really fun recipe that I make for my friends and family all the time. It's called Holiday Ginger Bars, and it is filled with all of the fun seasonal flavors that you think of when you think of the holidays. So let's talk about some of those things that are gonna make our holiday ginger bars really outstanding. Of course, we've got your basics. We're gonna start with some butter over here, also some brown sugar, 1 egg, molasses, flour, and then we're gonna get into the fun things like cinnamon and cloves. We've got a ton of ginger going in there, some baking soda, a little kosher salt. We're gonna use some golden raisins today, and then this is the most exciting ingredient. We're gonna use some crystallized ginger. Really delicious, kind of makes them spicy and sweet. So you are going to love it. Like I said, I love this recipe. I love it for my friends. So let's get started. Let's not waste any time. So the first thing that we're going to do is take our stick of butter, really easy, and just dump it into our stand mixer bowl. I'm going to attach our paddle attachment. We don't need anything else, just this guy right here. And then what I'm going to do is lock it into place and turn this on. What I want to have happen is have the butter get really nice and fluffy and creamy. Once I see that, I'm going to toss in this 1 cup of brown sugar as well. All right, here we go. Okay, that is room temperature butter, just getting nice and creamy, adding a little bit of air. To that, we're gonna add the 1 cup of brown sugar. Super easy. All of these ingredients should be things pretty much, maybe with the exception of the crystallized ginger, that are just hanging out in your pantry, crying out to be used. So now that I've got my brown sugar in here with the butter, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this guy back on, and we're gonna cream the 2 of those together so they're nice and fluffy. Right. So now that you have everything creamed together, I'm gonna go ahead and scrape down the sides of my mixer. Sometimes, even though these are great appliances, you just need to give everything a good scrape to ensure that it was mixed together properly. What we're gonna do next is add our egg. Perfect. No eggshell. Whew. I'm gonna toss that in there. Once the egg, the butter and sugar are all mixed together, I'm going to pour in a 1/4 cup of our molasses. So thick. Let me get a little bit more. Okay, so in our stand mixer, we have our butter, sugar, egg, molasses. Everything's looking really good. So before we get to our dry ingredients, into our mixture at least, we wanna whisk them all together into a bowl. So we're gonna start with this 2 cups and 2 tablespoons of flour, and that's just gonna go right in here. Set my whisk down. And then, like I said, we're gonna start with our spices. So we have some cinnamon, we have cloves, plenty of ginger. We have our leavener, so we're using baking soda for this recipe. So we're gonna toss that in there, and also some kosher salt. Now let me put a plug in. If you haven't replaced your spices recently, please check out their expirations. Spices do have a shelf life. The fresher the spice, the more potent the flavor, and we really want to wow people with our holiday cooking and baking, so I would recommend checking all your expirations and replacing anything that is significantly out of date, because the flavors are just gonna fall flat. Okay, so now we've got all of this here in the bowl, and we're just gonna take a little whisk and thoroughly combine everything. So all the bites of your holiday bars are gonna be the same. They're not gonna taste one more cinnamon or ginger or whatever. So the most important thing is when you're adding in your dry to your wet is you just keep everything on a nice slow speed and that you take your time. Okay, so I managed to get most of it from one bowl to the next, so that's great. And I'm gonna use my spatula again just to catch anything wipe that off into the bowl, clean off the paddle. It's done a great job. I always like to tell my clients and my friends, you really can do all of this by hand, but it's so much easier with the machine. So removing it, you can see we did a fairly good job. Everything's really nice. The dough has come together. This is a thicker dough. It's also kind of a sticky dough. I'm just scraping down the sides of our bowl. And now we're gonna add my two favorite ingredients, the golden raisins and the crystallized ginger. When you get a piece of the bar and you're biting into it and you either get a raisin or crystallized ginger or a little bit of both, it just flavor explosion. All right. So I like to do this step by hand. You could leave it up to your mixer, but I think it's a little easier to make sure it doesn't really rip apart the raisins. They're a little delicate. And then you can make sure that everything is really thoroughly combined before you take this recipe to the next step. From here, I'm gonna take this over to the fridge and let it kind of chill. That butter makes this dough really soft, and so we want it to kind of firm up before we stick it in the oven. So 30 minutes in the fridge, and then we'll be right back here. I just retrieved the dough out of the refrigerator, so same old dough. And what I'm gonna do now is kind of scoop it, make sure it's not sticking to the sides of my mixing bowl. What I wanna do is just lightly flour my work surface. So grab a little flour, sprinkle it generously, and then I'm just gonna turn the dough out of the mixing bowl. And it might stick a little bit, so what I really like to do is kind of pick it up and then redistribute the flour a little bit here and there. So just a nice little disc shape, nothing too fancy, you don't have to get crazy. And then I'm gonna use my dough cutter. A lot of people use them like bench scrapers. There's a ton of names for this tool, but let me tell you, it really comes in handy for all kinds of different things in your kitchen when you're cooking. And I'm just going to eyeball it and cut our disc in half. And I'm gonna take each one of my halves and kind of gently squeeze so they resemble more of a log shape. And we want to get them about 12 or so inches. Once you get them about there, you're gonna transfer it over to a nice baking sheet that's been lined with some parchment paper. What we love about parchment is it makes cleanup super easy. And if you don't have parchment, you might have a Silpat. Those are amazing too, and they're just kind of like a reusable silicone lined parchment. So we use those a lot here. I use them at home. But today I just did some regular old parchment. So the second piece, same as the first, just shaping it kind of roughly into a log, not worrying that it's rounded or anything like that. And really, I'm just trying to get about the same length as I did with the first piece. Okay, so you can see, very easy. They're about 3 inches apart. These do spread a lot while they're baking, so we want to make sure there's a nice size gap before we head into the oven. We've preheated our oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and these are going to cook for about 20 minutes. Okay, I just took these out of the oven and they smell amazing. So we're almost done. So there are the 2 bars that this recipe makes. So this is the fun part, this is the easy part, this is the boozy part. Okay, so we're gonna make a quick glaze, and I've got over here just a cup of powdered sugar or so, a little bit of rum, and we're also going to really even amp up the flavor with a little bit of citrus. So we've got some lemon that we're gonna zest, and just for fun, because it's the holidays and you have to be extra, we've got some sprinkles as well. So the quick glaze, just we're gonna dump this whole thing of powdered sugar right there into our bowl. And we don't necessarily need to add all of the booze, but we'll see. We'll start with a little bit and see how far we get. So that's maybe just a couple of teaspoons, and I'm just gonna start whisking. The most important thing you want with your glaze is just a pourable consistency. And if you didn't want to do this in a bowl, you could easily do it in a little measuring glass, and that way it would have like a pouring spout and make your life really simple. Yeah, everything is wanting to stick, so we definitely need, I guess we're gonna need all of it. I'm not sad. All right, guys, this looks really good. We're just gonna kind of drizzle this over our bars. There's no rhyme or reason, just however you want. This would be a great time if you had a kiddo at your house. Maybe they wanna help. This would be perfect for them. Okay, so we just have a really nice lemon, and I'm really just gonna quickly zest our lemon. And this is a really fine zester. When you're zesting, you definitely don't want to go past the nice yellow, bright part of your lemon peel. You don't want to get down to the white, that's bitter. So stay, keep moving around your lemon so you get plenty of just that beautiful lemon oil flavor. Yum. Okay, that looks good to me. And then the final, just gonna use some of these really cute little sprinkles to decorate the bars, get into the glaze. When your bars first come out of the oven, they're gonna be very, very warm and kind of flexible. As they cool off, they're gonna become a little bit more crispy. So you should be able to move them without too much problems. And because you're working on a parchment-lined baking sheet, there's no sticking, which I love. And for these, I recommend just using a serrated knife. And you'll just move this over, and then depending on how large a piece you want to slice up, there you go. You can just keep going. They're super delicious and super wonderful, and I cannot wait to dive into them. Still a little warm, delicious. It's delicious. It's easy, it's fun, it's everything you want to serve your guests and your friends. And I hope that you make this recipe this holiday and that you enjoy the season. And thanks again for having me. I'm Alicia Cahill with The Kitchen Chick, and happy holidays, everybody.